This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
The pursuit of a dream is hardly a straight road. The ups and downs, the twists and turns can have a range of emotions, from elation to deep, dark depression. The highs and the lows are often too much for people to handle. One moment you hit the note, it becomes a symphony, and the next, your instrument is out of tune. The path to success is constantly trying to throw you from one side to the other, making it hard to see the original manifestation of your dream. Only those with incredible resolve and steadfast commitment are able to endure the journey. The difficulties make the victories taste so much sweeter, and the hardships make the struggle worthwhile. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Falaise. Tom Flynn will be sitting in with me tonight, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button like Tom Flynn is sitting in the dunk tank and you're throwing a ball at it. Subscribe to the channel. Please comment. Ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. On tonight's episode of the Suffering Podcast, we have a first because I don't think we've ever had a true blue career musician in here. And tonight we welcome Kenny Dubman to talk about the suffering of a musician. Kenny, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
This is
good to be here.
This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun because I got a lot of questions that 4-year-old kid that always thought about, hey, it would be great to be a rock star. Well, I actually got one sitting in here, and I'm interested to hear your story.
Yeah, I'm not 4 years. I'm not 4 anymore, though.
Before we get into anything, let's do a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as podcasters, and we certainly don't trust anybody as retired police officers, but we do trust the guys over at Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com and let them know the Suffering Podcast sent you. So, Kenny, each week we take a question from our audience. This question comes from Little Z. I don't know. Listen, my son listens to some of that stuff, and everybody's little this, little that, little this, so I just picked it out. What did you want to be as a little kid? We all had these dreams and aspirations, these big, grandiose things, but what was your dream?
First thing I wanted to be was a marine biologist, believe it or not. I was just really into the sea and sea creatures and everything, and I was hell-bent on that.
I got to be honest with you. In a million years, if you gave me 1,000 guesses, I wouldn't have guessed you wanted to be a marine biologist.
Well, I'm still into everything, having to do with the sea and fish and creatures and fishing and everything like that. Love it.
Do you scuba dive?
No, but I'm a big saltwater fisherman.
Because the only thing, and I grew up on the ocean. I grew up in Atlantic City, so I grew up on the ocean. I grew up fishing, doing all that stuff. I would never jump in because I saw Jaws and Ben Gardner coming out from the bottom of his boat, and forget it. Forget it. Never in a million years.
At least you didn't see that Kittner boy spill out all over the dock.
Well,
Perfect.
So every year I put up a tribute to Alex Kittner. Every single year. And certain people, and I swear to God, this is the social media nightmare. Everybody's like, oh, prayers. Oh, prayers.
It's a joke.
Like, really? I put up an obituary to Walter White once, and everybody's like, oh, prayers to the family. Like, really?
Nobody remembers Pippet.
Pippet. Oh,
Pippet's the dog.
Pipet's
they're
the
calling
dog.
it Pippet got eaten by the shark.
I didn't. That I wouldn't have known.
Because they're calling Pippet.
So I was more upset about Pippet than Alex Kittner, I'm sorry to say. Tom, what do you think? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, it's goofy. I guess because I'm thinking like real young. I didn't have any idea. Marine biologist. How am I going to top that? Like George Costanza. He was the marine. I'm a marine biologist.
Yeah, you could always have the latex career, though.
Yeah, right. You're going to lose my latex salesman.
Art Vandelay.
Yeah, Vandelay Industries. So it's a childhood thing. I always wanted to be a superhero. Like when I was watching, cartoons, comic books, and things like that, and we all know how that worked out. Not so well. And
now you are one. You're my superhero.
Yeah, man. No, get out of here.
You're Mr. White.
Yeah, Mr. Very White.
Mr.
But I mean,
Very White.
Listen, we became cops. I don't know if that's superhero, but
It's the most realistic thing.
yeah, like helping. You want to save people and
Sure it
wear
is.
the uniform. Like not Marvel superheroes. I'm talking like way old school. But yeah, I wanted to be a superhero, as goofy as it was.
So I have a very strange one. One of my fondest childhood memories is sitting watching professional wrestling with my grandfather. Okay. And he used to get a kick every time Andre the Giant came walking in and stepped over the top rope. My grandfather would crack up laughing. I don't know why he found it funny, but it was something that him and I always just sat and watched, and we enjoyed. You knew from a very early age that it was all theater, but I wanted to be a bad guy wrestler. Like I always gravitate, Roddy Piper. I always gravitated towards the bad guys because they seemed to have more fun. And then eventually what would happen is the storyline would break and they would become somewhat of a hero. But when they became a hero, they didn't have to follow the same guidelines as the face, the good guys, the Hulk Hogan's, always saying the right thing and doing the right thing and encouraging the youth. They could still say whatever they want. They could flip people off in the crowd and everybody would love them because they did one thing good. And then they go back to being a bad guy. So that's what I always wanted to be. Now, as I got older, I actually did go to a couple of professional wrestling classes. And I got to be honest with you, those guys, they earn their money. They earn their money. So my dream of being a professional wrestler in my early 20s ended real quick when I found out, my God, these guys get put through hell. And that's low-level stuff. I can't imagine what it is.
You watched the movie The Wrestler. I mean, that really tells a story behind the scenes, right?
And I actually know somebody that was in there, a guy named Mike Martin. He was one of the extras in there. We had him in here.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's what, because he was a low-level professional wrestler for a while, so I was picking his brain about
I was hoping you were going to say Marissa Tomei, but,
But another thing it did, too, there was a wrestler named Buddy Rogers. He's a golden hair type of guy, 60s wrestler. And I was in a mall once, and he comes walking right past. He's an older man, comes walking right past me, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy he was bigger than life, and he wasn't in character, he wasn't anything, but he was bigger than life to me. I'm like, wow. So, piggybacking on your superhero thing, I think they were superheroes to me, and they had the gift of gab, and they have all this charisma, and it was just the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, gift of gab for sure.
Yeah.
So, Little Z, thanks for sending in that question. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. So, Kenny, we've never actually sat down with a professional. Well, that's not Derek, but Derek's an overkill. I don't know. Do you call that music? No, I'm sorry, Derek, man. Listen, I'm sorry.
Great stuff, man.
Come on, Derek's a friend of mine, man.
I love Derek, man. I told him, Derek, I love you, man. I'm just not, that's just not my style. But I appreciate the fact their longevity, and
for sure.
And it seems like you've had this career, this longevity career, and me and my son will talk about music all the time and whatever new band is out there. And I said, see me in 10 years with this person. And then, because he tries to compare him. Like, I'm a big Elvis guy, right? I'm a big Elvis because I like the performance, I like the voice. And I said, see me in 10 years. If in 10 years, then we'll start talking any type of legacy. Because that business that you chose is probably one of the most ruthless, cutthroat businesses that I've ever heard. I've never been involved in it, but I've heard these things.
Well, I mean, any form of entertainment business is going to be, whether you choose to do that or, try to be an actor, which is probably even worse than trying to be a musician. Anything like that is going to be brutal.
Yeah, I guess because you're constantly fighting for the spotlight. Even, it's either you're in it or you're out of it, and you're always trying to get back to it.
Yeah, and then there's politics and favoritism and all that kind. Not to mention how many other people want to do the same thing you want to do. So there's just thousands and millions of other people all trying to do the same thing. It
almost makes you want to go to a Diddy party.
No, it doesn't.
Just bring some baby oil. You'll be fine.
Still not enough.
No, thanks.
So, Kenny, tell me a little bit. You're a Jersey guy, homegrown. Tell me about a little bit how you grew up, where you grew up.
All right. I grew up in West Orange, Essex County.
Right next door to the town I worked in.
Same
worked
here.
in Roseland.
Roseland. No kidding.
Yeah.
I worked in Montclair.
Oh, all right. So we're all from like that same little, that nucleus, right?
And my father-in-law was West Orange cop.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Frank Biello.
During what year, what time frame?
He retired in 2015 or 16. He passed away last May.
Okay, well, sorry to hear that.
But he was there. He started in Newark and did his last 20 years in West Orange.
Okay, yeah, I was out of West Orange by like the late 80s. But, born in 63 and grew up there. I had a pretty typical upbringing, parents split up. I was like 10, maybe 11. So I got some time with both parents, my twin brothers, not so much, but, pretty straight up childhood. But the music thing, I'm sorry.
No, you're twin brothers. So you.
No, I have twin brothers that are younger than me.
That are younger. Okay.
Yeah. And the reason I started playing guitar is because my mom was a big, really into 70s rock. and she would play Hendrix and Santana, among other things.
Your mom would play Santana.
And Hendrix, yes.
Ooh.
She's a
That's cool.
big rock music fan. So I was getting exposed to that sound of a soloing electric guitar at a really young age. And it just really it struck a chord in me. I said, man, I really want to do that. So I picked it up when I was 9, started taking lessons, but it really didn't kick in. It took a while. It took about 3 years. So I started figuring out the rock stuff on my own. Like my guitar lessons at 9, 10, 11 years old wasn't rock.
It was
like
classic.
You just
acoustic
get some jazz guy that come in
Theory.
and teach you out of the Mel Bay Book 1.
Mel Bay.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
man.
That's the book that everybody tries to learn to play guitar.
Yeah, well, it's the standard. It's still the industry standard. So, by the time I was 12, and I started to learn really how to play legit rock guitar, that was when it just really like started to spin fast for me.
Well, there's people who pick up a guitar, and this, so there's a point of, I don't want to say jealousy, but I admire certain people can just hear things. They have an ear for it. They can just pick things up. Like there's certain people who can sit down on a piano and it all just makes sense to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have that music ability. I love it. I appreciate music. I appreciate all forms of music, but I don't have that ability to differentiate. Doing this, believe it or not, it has actually tuned my ears a little bit to what sounds good, what doesn't sound good.
Well, I didn't have it either. I mean, it took me a good 3 years, and really more on my own than from my lessons, to start unraveling how to play rock lead guitar. I did on my own.
So that's that ability to adapt. Like you learn, say jazz, okay? You learn that's how you got set up on a guitar. What's that transition? Like what clicked in your head to make you start playing rock?
Well, I always wanted to play rock.
Yeah.
So when you start out, even though I had like a jazz teacher, you're not learning jazz. Jazz is a very sophisticated form of music for any player. So you're learning basic notes, how to hold your hand, how to form basic chords, and then how to read music. Very simple melodies, like out of the Mel Book Bay one.
Do you remember
Mel Bay Book 1.
the first
So-
song you won? You found you were able to play?
No, it was just whatever little Mel Bay. It wasn't because it like I said, like guitar teachers like nowadays, or even for quite some time, some kid goes to guitar lesson, he wants to learn songs,
Yeah.
and you have to learn how to play the instrument before you can play a song.
Scales and things like that.
Yeah, you have to learn how to hold your hand. You have to
Yeah.
learn which notes are what to call them.
Yeah.
So your fingers, like my fingers are short and stubby, right? So that was always and I've tried to learn how to play the guitar. My fingers are short and stubby. Your fingers are I see your fingers are a little longer.
Yeah.
Does that lend itself to being a
Not
better
like a
guitar
Steve
player?
Vai. Steve Vai's got these long spiky
No, I don't
fingers.
think so, because some guys with like the little tiny stubby fingers are wicked guitar players. Rick Derringer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, rock
Yep.
and roll hoochie coo.
Guy's phenomenal. I think it's really just, I don't think because, the guitar neck is not a big, giant thing to tackle. So, yeah, I don't think that really matters.
I know they make wider necks and everything. Is it set up specific to the person?
No.
No, it's just
Nope.
basic.
Mhm.
So you go down this road of, you start to develop a love for it, I'm assuming. You had a love from it from your mother, but you started say, hey, you know what? I'm getting better day by day. I'm starting to figure this stuff out. I'm starting to adapt to it a little bit more. Was there ever a moment where you're like, yeah, this is really cool?
It wasn't a single moment. Well, the "this is really cool" thing was going on before I even picked up an instrument. Like I was listening to Hendrix, going, "My God, that is just so insanely cool." And of course, you jump into it. Oh, we'll get you some guitar lessons,
Mm-hmm.
and then the guitar teacher comes in and you're learning "Mary Had a Little Lamb." You're like, you don't have the sophistication of thought at that age to be like, okay, well, I have to get over this hurdle first before I can do the things that I'm hearing that are super cool. You're not thinking that way. You're just like, well, I want to do this.
You got to eat your vegetables before
yeah.
dessert, right? I want the dessert. I want the distortion.
Yeah, exactly.
right?
I wanted the distortion. I wanted the dessert. So, and like I said before, it was never a teacher saying, okay, you got this certain amount of stuff under your belt. I can show you, what a pentatonic minor scale is,
Yeah.
what it means to bend a string, how to slide from note to note. like the stuff that you're hearing and that you want to do. I never had a teacher that did that because I never had a rock playing teacher.
Yeah.
So to be perfectly honest, I figured that out myself based off of one of the coolest simple lead guitar players there was in the 70s, who was Ace Frehley.
There you go.
So it was Kiss Alive, the first Kiss Alive album that I actually was like, all right, I got to figure this shit out, man. He was doing the stuff that Jimmy Page was doing, all the same patterns and everything, but much more deliberately, slowly, methodically, to where a kid that was just trying to sink his claws into it could hear it and be like, take that needle, drop the needle 100 friggin' times back and forth.
First album I ever bought, full-size album, was Kiss's Dynasty, the disco and I Was Made for Loving You.
Yeah. Great tune, by the way.
But
Absolutely.
I can still sing it verbatim, but I saw Frehley's Comet play in Brigantine, New Jersey. I'll bet you it was 91, 92 or something like that. And all I kept thinking is, looking at Ace Frehley, man, you should put the makeup back on, brother, because you are ugly. The key component to any law enforcement officer being the best version of themselves is through education. Sherry Alsop is a leader in providing that education to police agencies, preparing them for the all too frequent dealings with sexual assault victims.
You've seen Sherry on episode 169 of the Suffering Podcast. She survived incest and almost daily sexual assault, so she comes from a place of experience and true understanding.
Sherry has the intelligence, commitment, and compassion to open the eyes of those on the front lines, while providing the tools to effectively deal with a difficult situation. Sherry's instruction comes from experience and multiple certifications.
Training with Sherry will offer on-site training, customized schedules, specialized instruction tailored from a victim's perspective.
You are going to hear Sherry's heart-wrenching but inspiring survivor story. Learn proprietary trauma-informed training techniques, uncovered victim-centered interview methods while earning continuing education credits according to your state guidelines. To be the best, you must learn from the best. Let Sherry also guide you through the delicate cases of sexual assault from a victim's point of view.
Be a source of comfort to those victims affected by these traumatic experiences while producing a solid investigation and uncovering details that often go unnoticed.
To find out more or to contact Sherry Alsop, go to sherryalsop.com. That's SherryAllsup.com.
Listen, he just put out another album.
But there's people like him who you develop your own style, you develop your own thing. How long did it take you to work that rock guitar before it's yours?
I don't know. Probably from when I started cracking the code. I don't know. It's all you're doing when you're a young player is you're drawing from other people, and you're like, wow, I can do this solo, I can do that solo. Before you actually have an identifiable style that sounds like where somebody can hear me and go, that sounds like KD. You know what I mean? I mean, that takes years, man. Yeah. Years.
I've been told too.
Because all your influences have to boil down,
to
the marrow to get to what's you. And some people still sound like other people all the time. I mean, they never quite develop their own style.
But you see, there's something very interesting there.
I don't even know if I have my own style. Who knows?
You do. I've listened to enough. I went down the whole YouTube rabbit hole with you today. But here's the thing that's beautiful. Your mother nurtured this.
Don't talk about my mother. She thinks you're cute, by the way.
She thinks I'm cute. You can give her my number. That's fine. I
don't know, man. You like older bras? She's going to be 90. All right, let's get off that topic.
I smell a romance in the making.
It worked for Anna and Nicole. We'll just do it in reverse.
Yeah.
So your mother saw this, I don't know, an interest, and had the forethought say, hey, let me nurture this interest. Let me see if he's really wants to do this stuff.
Yeah, my mom was hugely instrumental in keeping me playing. Because at one point I wanted to quit. Like before I discovered Kiss Alive, I was like, I can't do this shit anymore. And she was like, just stick it out. Sit in the kitchen with me while I make dinner and practice your guitar lesson. I was like, God, I hated it. I was hating it so much. But for some reason, I just,
it becomes a job.
I didn't fight her too much on it. And, I'm glad I didn't, because if she had just said, all right, you're done. You don't have to do it anymore. Don't know where, the path of life would have gone, honestly.
Because I take this lesson from the way I was raised. So I was drilled sports, and I love sports. Don't get me wrong, I love sports, but I also I have a very creative side. I also love to sketch. I love to write. I love to do all the creative things, but it was never nurtured. Sports was nurtured. Sports was like, you got to do sports, and that stuff, that's really unimportant. Now I have my 2 boys, and my one boy is all sports. And my other, and likes to cook. So that's his creative side. My other boy likes sports, but loves to create. So, he likes to sing. So I brought him in here. I recorded a professional song with Andrew and made a little video because I want to nurture that stuff because it's important.
It is important.
It's important to do that stuff. It's important to know that you knew your mom had your back. And that's what I want my boys to know. I got your back, whatever you want to do.
She had my back in that she had my best interest at heart, like before I really figured the whole thing out. She kept me focused, although I didn't want to be focused. After it started to roll and I was, showing that I had some propensity towards that, then she really she was full blown 100% supportive. Probably maybe a little too much, seriously, because I think if I hadn't gone down the music path, which is rough, and it's still rough. You know what I mean? Would I've gone to medical school? Who knows? Yeah. And it's something that a musician will beat his or him or herself up over their whole lives if they don't achieve huge financial success, because you're grinding it out, man, and you're like, fuck, what if I hadn't done this? What if I had done this instead?
But at the same time, would you may have been miserable, and you may have died a slow death. There's a quote by Ben Franklin. So what Ben Franklin says is most men die at 30 and are buried at 80. Okay, so if you would not have gone down,
it's a great quote.
It's wonderful because it's every man who's above 50 or in their 60s understands that quote all too well, because you give up on your dreams at 30 because you get a family, you get a wife, you get all this stuff and all these responsibilities, and you have to do what you have to do. But very few of us, like yourself, are able to pursue something. It's like a dream to pursue.
Yeah, there's an interesting caveat to this whole thing, though, because at one point in the early to mid 90s, I just said, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And I took something else I had become very, very passionate about. I just veered off, put music in a closet, and there it stayed. Although I still played gigs and, cover gigs, acoustic gigs. I wasn't trying to do anything creatively and say, this is what I've created. This is what I'm doing. I'm playing these songs live. I'm in the studio. That's a whole different aspect of being a musician.
Now you said you hung it up, but you were in a band that played out. You were in a pretty well-known band.
Yeah, but at the time that I decided to walk away from the creative and songwriting and recording side of it, any gigs that I was doing after that, moving forward, let's call it 94-ish or so. Okay. I was still playing out with the Edgar Casey band. I would still do profit gigs here and there. Yeah. But it was just a gig. It was just okay, I'll do it, and then I'll go back to,
almost like a session musician, so
no,
to speak.
No, not really. It was the guys wanted to play, so I would, go do it.
Yeah. You're competing with grunge, though. I mean, that was a tough competition.
Yeah, but I didn't care because I had already mentally hung up the writing and recording side. Don't forget, that's a whole different thing than playing in a cover band, playing an acoustic duo thing at a restaurant where you're playing cover tunes. Both of them are both being a musician. Yeah. But pursuing the creative avenue and getting your own stuff out there is an entirely different segment from anything else. They're completely divergent paths.
One, you're established. You're playing established songs. You're playing songs that the standards, things people want to hear from you. And the other one, you got to kind of hit them over the head with something that they've never heard before.
Yeah. So let me just backtrack a little bit. That whole walking away lasted about 20 years. And we'll get into in a minute what kicked me back into it. Wow. Into wanting to do it again. So the stuff that you see on YouTube now and everything, that's 2016 through the present. Through now. And that's picking up where I left off in 94.
So before we get there, you start developing this propensity in your teen years for this music. Mm-hmm. Was there a one point where you say, you know what, I think I'm going to give this a go. I think I'm going to try this as a profession.
Oh, that happened before I was even out of high school.
No kidding.
Before I was out of high school, I joined the band Prophet, and I couldn't even drive. I wasn't even driving yet. My mom had a.
How'd you get picked up by them? Were it just friends of yours?
Back in those days, you would look to find musicians and or join a band by the Aquarian Classifieds. The DC Rocker before it was DC Rocker was the Aquarian. So that's where everybody looked for
Looking for a guitarist.
So I was playing with a drummer and a keyboard player at the time, and we had an ad out looking for whoever else we were looking for, singer or whatever. And the guys, a couple of guys that would form Prophet, wanted a guitar player. They never had a drummer. So they called us both to play, and were actually just listening to me. So they somehow got my number. I gave it to them. I didn't realize what was going on. And I got the call, a couple days later. Hey, would you mind coming back? Just you. I was like, yeah.
Had you auditioned for anybody else prior to that?
No, because that drummer that I mentioned, we were trying to put our own band together for a long time. We'd go through people and just, they'd show up and last a couple of rehearsals, or we'd find something we didn't like about them, or they turned out to be a drunk or whatever it was. So we were at that for like, I don't know, a year and a half.
I bet you in high school, you crushed it with women because you could play the guitar, which, listen, I've seen some of these.
I absolutely did not crush it with women at all. I was just like this little weird pot smoking kid with like.
How the hell this
like bushy long hair.
You are ruining my whole image of musicians, because to me,
dude, once I got out there in the clubs, that's when it all kicked in. I mean, but I was like, high school.
You look at Mick Mars, right? So you look at Mick Mars from Motley Crue. He is a hideous skeleton-looking guy, and I saw his wife on one of the documentaries. I'm like, holy shit! Like, what is this? This is just unfair.
Well, that's fame and fortune, man.
Yeah, the garage band stuff.
If Mick Mars was playing in some shitty bar to no people, like he wouldn't be. Wouldn't be scoring that level of.
Still with the 70s mustache that he used to have.
The fame and money, no matter what, and power, no matter what medium you're successful in, is always going to attract that.
That's crazy. I mean, that's
the way it is.
That's my vision. But I'm thinking of this kid. Okay, this kid can play guitar. It's one of those things. Hey, let's go out on a date. Oh, I happen to have broke my guitar playing, and then you just
serenade.
Next thing you know, everything comes off.
No, it's not like that. In high school, I was just this weird pot smoking introvert. Yeah. We played a couple high school dances, but I was not like by any stretch. Was not going on.
So
in high school.
So you get into this band Prophet. Who did it click automatically? Was there some friction?
No, that situation. Once we really started working hard, it took off pretty quick because we were doing stuff that nobody was doing. And we were doing like Kansas and Rush and Pink Floyd, Genesis, and hard rock stuff like Van Halen, Scorpions, AC/DC. And that combination of those, we go from one to the other and just, we got out there and we just gig wherever we could find a gig. I think our first gig was at a party at a frat house at Stevens Tech in Hoboken. Yeah. And I remember that because I came down with like 104 fever. It was brutal. I was like sleeping during breaks. Then we had to break down all the shit. Nobody had roadies, with that kind of a fever. It was
yeah. Wait till after the show. You'll see the two roadies breaking down the whole studio. That's what we do.
Yeah.
But so that band, as we got a foothold in like the D level clubs and the C level clubs and B, and then you just work your way up. You draw people talk, more crowd show up. So that band by like, I don't know, 81 was firing on all cylinders pretty good.
That's a great time.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That is exactly what I want to hear from a professional musician in a big band. Yeah, it was fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
But you start hitting these different levels. Now, you got the music.
Now, don't forget that this is all still as a cover band.
Right.
Just playing cover music.
But you start hitting different levels, right? So you got the music down, you know how to play. And then you go up in front of audiences, smaller audiences first, get your confidence going, and your confidence keeps building and building and building until you're in front of decent sized audiences. What is one thing that surprised you when you got to, say, the B to the A level clubs?
No, nothing really surprised me because you were going to see other bands that were bigger than you, so you always knew what was going on. And it's just there's nothing different except more people and more money. That's all it is.
But no pressure. Like you didn't
No.
feel that pressure or anything as a young man. That's crazy.
Because you're full of fucking piss and vinegar and testosterone, man. You're like, let's rock.
Yeah.
And you're drinking and you're doing lines and all that other shit. So
You
you're-
get the rock and roll lifestyle.
you're fired up, dude. I mean, there's never any. Well, for us there wasn't, and I think for most other musicians there isn't. Some, I guess, struggle with like, stage fright or insecurity. But we were like, dude, you see that crowd and you're like, the throttle just goes to the floor.
Yeah.
It amps you
You're
up.
fired up.
I know Jim Morrison had a problem with that. He had a huge shyness issue, and he would always have his back to the crowd, and they had to like force him to turn around.
Elvis too.
Elvis.
Elvis had
Wow,
stage fright.
That's wild.
Isn't it crazy?
But yeah, the guy who, he still, till the day he died, he had stage fright.
Yeah.
Never would have known that.
Yeah. I listen, I could go all day about Elvis, but this is about you. So you start playing. What was in the band Prophet? What was the one thing where you just like, oh my God, we did it, we made it?
I don't know if I ever really had that because getting to a certain level playing clubs and you're playing to these crowds, but we all knew that, that was it as a cover band. You're at that level and that's
You peak.
where you're going to stay. And unless you start writing your own stuff, that's the only entree into, tours and theaters and coliseums and making records and all that kind of stuff.
There's something I heard described by musicians and guys in bands that play. They call it the zone, like when you're actually in the zone. Like where all the chops are going, like you're hitting every note, and it's almost like you're on autopilot, like you're playing. It's almost like observing yourself from the outside. Is that something that you were finding yourself in?
Yeah, that zone, you could be in a personal zone and having a great night, with your own playing and be really happy with it. Or the whole band could be cooking on all cylinders, and that's a whole different level. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and that doesn't happen all the time. It happens a small percentage of the time.
Yeah.
Usually you're like, fuck, I fucked that part up, or, or this one wasn't happy with this. And, it's a fluid thing, live performance. You never know when all that shit's going to lock into place and you're going to have one of those magic nights.
Now, what you know about the music industry, take the Beatles, okay? The Beatles seem to have been, especially when they were writing their own music and creating their own music, they all seem to be in that zone that you talk about where they're all firing on all cylinders.
Well, that's the songwriting thing. That's a different thing than live performance.
Right.
Songwriting is a whole different, this is giant can of worms that you could talk about. It's because it's creative. I could go like a month and not have a single idea I want to work on. Then I could go a week and come out and finish 3 songs in 1 week, and then have another dry spell for like 2 months.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Those guys were just genius songwriters. So I mean,
I see it in here on this low level. I see it in here. There are times when we walk out of here and Tom and I'll look at each other and go, yeah, that was it. And then there's other times when I'm in here where I feel I'm not clicking.
I get it.
Something's on.
I get it. They're like, or anything that's, that's not, a program that's set. Now you're going to do this and this and this. This is free form.
Mm-hmm.
It's improvisation. So sometimes it clicks and works great, and sometimes it's just like playing on stage. Sometimes it's awesome and it's magic, and sometimes it's like,
I see it when I go out and I talk to crowds, right? So
Yeah,
if I'm in front
totally.
if I'm in front of a crowd, there's times when I'm on. And then there's other times where I'm like, I missed this shit. I missed it. And then you beat yourself up. You never remember the victories. You always remember the times.
Totally. I've beaten myself up over my own performances more times than I could even count. When I was much younger, I really get upset about it.
Now, your mother's got to be ultra proud. What about your father?
My dad is proud too, but my dad, he went to engineering school and then he became a dentist. So he was much more of a nose to the grindstone kind of guy. He still worries about me that I'm going to be poor when I'm old, and I probably will be.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
One of my favorite stories, and this kind of relates to your artistic path of life. I had a friend of mine He's been doing magic since he was 7 years old. Close up magic, card tricks, sleight of hand. And I used to work with him. I've known the guy. I've known the guy for 25 years. Well, one day he comes to me. We're working together, and we started this company. We were the first 2 employees. And he comes to me. He's like, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to leave this. I'm going to go do magic full time. I'm going to give it a go." And what he did was he left a job and found his calling. Mm-hmm. Ultra successful. I mean, so far above and beyond what he could have made in the business world. But to him, and this speaks to your father, to him, in order for him to be gainfully employed, he had to go to work in the morning, come home, have health insurance, have all this stuff. But that was him. But once he broke free of that chain, man, sky was the limit for him. And
that's fantastic.
But I think your father had that same, because I worry about my kids with that stuff too. I'm assuming your father had that same trepidation when it came to you.
My parents split up, and it was really, he wasn't that much in the picture, at that point. So really nobody had any say in what I was doing. I just went and did it.
Now your mom's got to be rocking out. I mean, your mom, who loves music, she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is a dream."
Pride.
Yeah. I mean, she's definitely proud of me. It'd be nice if at some point I ever had any commercial success with it.
I'm sure she wasn't proud when you were doing the lines,
Yeah, I don't know that she knew about it.
Oh, if she's a fan of music, see, that's the problem. We always think our parents don't know about that stuff. They know.
Yeah, I know.
They know. So let's get into a little bit of the rock and roll lifestyle. You're backstage. There's girls around. There's liquor around. There's other substances around. How easy is that for a young man to get sucked into?
Oh, very easy. Very easy. But again, there's different levels of that. If you're just like playing bars and then you're going home at night, it's one thing. But if you're at a pretty successful level and you're going from, the backstage rooms at the Coliseum to your tour bus, and that's a whole different level of excess.
You got to make sure that doesn't transcend the original goal, right? Like, then the alcohol addiction or whatever the vice is.
Look at how many people that it has done that to over the years. I mean, more than you could possibly count.
Yeah.
But they seem to survive. Keith Richards. Oh my gosh. The guy's still alive doing shows.
So many people haven't, though.
Yeah.
So many people haven't.
Well, I think once you make it past 27 as a musician, I think you're going to make it a little further, maybe.
Possibly. That was the 27, the magic age.
Yeah, that's Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Shannon Hoon, Amy Winehouse. There's Keith Moon.
Yeah, Keith Moon too. Yeah.
So they're all 20. They're all part of the 27 club,
if not by tragedy.
So back to
Randy Rhoads.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So back to the level at which I knew it was, playing bars. Get done 2:00 in the morning, then you're partying, drinking, doing lines, smoking weed. Then the after party would start at somebody's house. You'd go, "Oh, where are we going for? Where are we going?"
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to this one's house. We're going to, and that would go till like, whatever, 7, 8 o'clock the next morning.
Do you feel any of that stuff goes into, maybe the addiction and some of those other things, and maybe relationships? Does that go into your creative side? Like, does it come out in some of the songs you've written?
But not me personally, because I don't have an addictive personality. It never became a problem for me, but it became a problem for quite a few.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
One of the nuts and bolts I always wonder about musicians and songwriters is what comes first, like the riff, the music, or the melody, the chicken or the egg, right? Like, I always wonder, like, when you're writing a song, is there a riff and then sort of the lyrics go after it?
It's a very good question, or a very good point to bring up. I had written and been part of the songwriting process in Prophet and in other bands after that, up until I kind of walked away in '94.
Yeah.
Being a guitar player, it always started with a guitar riff for me. Okay. Yeah. Always. It was like riff and okay, now we're going to construct the rest of the song around this guitar riff. When I fell back into songwriting again around 2014, 15-ish, It was a completely different approach, and I think much more of a real songwriter approach, that it came with, like, you know, a vocal melody over some chord changes first, which is really, music is popular music is vocally driven, vocal melody driven. It's the vocal melody and the lyrics that the average person gonna latch onto. They don't really give a shit about the guitar riff. You know what I mean? So when I started writing songs that way, I was like, holy shit, this is writing, not a riff first and then trying to come up with other parts to carry that guitar riff. So I would say it comes with, you said what comes first. Usually like a vocal melody over some changes will come. That's the very first thing. Now, you don't know if that's going to be the chorus. You don't know if it's going to be the verse, or you don't know if it's going to be a bridge when you first come up with it.
Yeah.
But as you start adding parts on, it becomes apparent, like, okay, that part my initial thought, that's the verse. Now I need a chorus. And your verse part will lead you in melodically into where you should be with the chorus, or the bridge into the chorus. So yeah, I think that's a much more better way to construct a song that's going to be accessible than writing it around a guitar riff. Which guitar players do. Oh, they always
all the time
want to do that. You come up with a great riff. You're like, cool, that is. But you know what? No one gives a shit. Some chick listening to your song on the radio doesn't give a shit about the guitar riff. She's listening to the lyrics and the vocal melody.
Yeah.
Because that's really the crux of the song.
The riff for Enter Sandman. So Kirk Hammett apparently had this like 3 a.m. moment, and he had like a version of Enter Sandman, and called the rest of them, and then they kind of worked it around that.
Yeah,
they're different.
It's
they're
not
different
to say
animal.
that that song can't start with the riff, because it absolutely can. I'm just talking about my personal approach to writing now is much more melody
driven,
vocal melody driven over what changes are. But once you have that little nucleus of the song, then you can riff like fucking mad, man. Just put riffs wherever you want to put them.
The world's your oyster.
Well, there's a lot of science into it, is what I'm hearing from you. There's a lot of, it's not as easy as, hey, get 4 guys together, get a quartet, and we're just ready to go. There's a lot of science into the whole business portion of it. But
I don't know a damn thing about the music business. I never have, and now it's worse than ever. So I want to know less now than I ever knew.
Everything's a single. But while the rock and roll lifestyle seems very alluring, especially to somebody who's young, there's some pitfalls to it. You don't have
death.
You don't have a pension. You're working all the time. You are the entertainment when everybody else is going out for entertainment. You have your medical. Where's your medical coming from?
This could be said about anything that you're pursuing as a self-employed person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting a dog grooming business. I say that because I have a friend who does it. That you're literally, you have none of that stuff either. You're only going to take it as far as your own back can carry you.
But I think the entertainment business is one step above a dog grooming business, because you can build a dog grooming business to the point where it sort of just sails on its own.
Yeah, that's true.
But with musicians, you're up 1 minute and you could be down in 6 months, and you're like, oh, okay, where's my next paycheck coming from? So there's a lot of anxiety. You really got to have a lot of resilience in order to continue.
Yeah, but again, the term musician can mean a lot of different things. You could be in a wedding band.
Yeah.
Writing, trying to succeed, whatever that means anymore. Writing and recording your own original music is like, it's like, dude, you're just like being fucking marooned on Mars at this point. That's how far removed it is as far as any type of security or future. What, you don't know anything. You're just doing what you feel and what you do. And, and if you get lucky enough that like a lot of people end up liking it and following you and going to pay to see you play, then you're on top of the world.
That's got to be incredibly empowering to you to know that you're being accepted for doing something that you really enjoy.
Accepted is one thing. Making a living at it is a different thing entirely.
Well, so I think that's the success. That's how I would define success as a musician. Are you able to support yourself? Are you able to support your lifestyle? Are you able to, if you have a family at home, are you able to support them? And I think that's the difficult thing. I think that's the thing that everybody worries about when they get involved in this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but for me personally, I've had like a regular white collar day gig for the past 17 years, that started long before I jumped back into writing songs again. So I started doing that. We're crossing over career paths, because before that, I started and did really well with a charter fishing business. Started that in '97 and sold it in 2008, and that's all I cared about when I did that. Cared about nothing else.
So at its heart, Kenny, you're an entrepreneur. Like, that's what you are. You're an entrepreneur with your music. You're an entrepreneur with the charter fishing business.
I guess. I mean, never really achieved any level of financial comfort with any of it. I'm one of those guys who's just really like went after the stuff that he liked to do, like a pit bull. Like logic be damned.
But that takes balls.
Security be damned.
That takes balls to do that stuff. Like, not everybody has the guts to go after something that they're passionate about.
I guess. I mean, for me, there was never any second thought about it.
None of this is easy work.
No.
I mean, a charter fishing, I mean, you cannot be lazy. You have to be disciplined.
That was intense. And I gotta tell you, that was some of the most fun years I ever had was when I had that boat. It was crazy.
The minute amount of people that are able to take your career path is shocking to me. Okay, I could never take your career path because my anxiety would just go through the roof. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this.
Dude, my anxiety kicks in at like 3 o'clock in the morning when I wake up and my head's going, and I'm like, oh my God. I wish I had an Ativan right now so I can go back to sleep.
Get a pen and paper. That's your next song, right?
Oh.
So you work your way through the 80s.
Yeah.
And were you always with Prophet during the 80s?
Yeah, Prophet started recording in 85 and kind of toughed it out through like 91-ish. And then we'd always get back together for shows, local shows here and there, but it wasn't really like a functioning entity that was trying to do anything, trying to move forward.
So you decide to hang it up. What drove you to that? You spent the better part of, at this point, 15, almost 20 years working towards this goal, and you're just like, I'm done, man.
Yeah, I just, after Prophet, I had some projects, original music projects, a couple of them, that I thought were really good, and they didn't pan out. And at the same time that stuff was like kind of not panning out, I was getting psycho obsessed with saltwater fishing. So now you can see how like the new thing was coming in and pulling me away from the old thing. And that new passion for being at sea led me to decide one day, I'm getting my captain's license. I'm going to do this for a living.
What is it about the sea that draws you? It's a lot quieter than playing music.
The whales out there with the golf balls.
Marine biologist, Costanza.
I want to go
Kenny
out and
Dubman.
Rescue them.
I'm a marine biologist.
I don't know. It's hard to say, but the guys that are really like nuts into it, and I have a lot of friends that are, I'm still insanely crazy about it.
It's intricate. Like there's a lot of things between rigs and.
It's you have to go out there and hunt and find it. I think it appeals to the basic hunter gatherer nature.
That's the whole Hemingway thing.
Human being. Yeah.
It really is the man versus the sea. You know, it's the whole Hemingway thing. There's peace in there, and there's adventure in there, and that's where you lose yourself and find yourself all in one spot.
Totally. There's still nothing better. There's no better therapy session for me than when I'm out there, like by myself for like 6-8 hours. I come back in, I get off the boat, and I'm like, oh man, I just like any little care in the world that I had, gone.
Right, because the
sea is my mistress. the sea.
One of the things you realize, especially out in the ocean, especially when you lose sight of land, you realize how small you are in this world.
Yeah, it's not you really have to be weather. You have to be weather cognizant, and you can't be faint of heart. You need to be like an outdoorsy, like face. Now I don't. I'm not sailing. Hundreds of miles for days at a time, like a commercial fisherman. I'm just, coastal stuff, and I can see the beach. But it's you have to be. I think the guys that are doing that are built of the.
It's a different breed.
More of the brawny type.
It is a complete different breed. One of the YouTube channels it's called that I listen to. It's called Scary and Interesting, and they talk about a lot of people who get lost at sea, who have to either kill and eat their people on. It's crazy stories. You're talking 1800s. You're talking long time ago. But you see the resolve that these men, especially back then, because they didn't know if they were coming home. Their ship goes down. There's no search party. There's no nothing coming for them. They're drifted in the sea until they hopefully either see land or see another boat.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, people still get lost at sea all the time because it's such a vast area. But you go from being around all these people playing music, hearing the cheers of the crowd, till you're listening to the waves slap up against the side of your boat.
Yeah, but I'm also listening to like drunk guys smoke cigars and yell and scream because I'm a charter boat captain now, and that's what you're exposed to.
Fish on.
But yeah, so back to the original point, the fishing, I became completely obsessed with it, and at one point, I got my license, and it was like, okay, this is what I'm doing now. And while I was building that business, I was still in a wedding band. I was still teaching guitar, to get it to the point where I could subsist on the charter boat alone, which took a few years, as you could imagine.
And boats are expensive. They're big, giant holes in the water that you throw money into.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different. That's a whole other side of the thing. It's just this ongoing maintenance. It never stops.
So something changed in the tide, you might say. But then
I see what you did there.
Yeah, this is very clumsy. I'm not very good at this.
No, that was awesome.
So at some point, the tide brings you back to music. Was it a gradual thing, or was there just something that kind of clicked in you to bring you back in?
It's a very interesting story. Along the way, during these years, I got married in 2003.
My condolences.
Yep. Divorced in 2011. Jumped into a rebound right off the bat for a couple of years. And without getting into gory details, because I don't want to speak ill of anyone.
Yeah.
It was a long time of a lot of tough stuff that I had to deal with. All right. By the time I walked away from the rebound, I was in the most unbelievably brutal state of clinical depression you could possibly imagine. Now, I had flirted with that a little bit when I was married, but I got on some medication, and, we had a young kid, and I just, there was no way I could succumb to it. So I was actually able to get myself righted again. But after going through a second round of that, it took me to a low that I never thought I could. This is where the suffering part comes into this podcast.
For sure.
It was, people, before I went through that, I'd hear people talk about depression. Oh, I'm depressed. You have no fucking idea what depression is until you suffer clinical PTSD type of, where you can't even get out of bed. You can't talk to anyone. Your limbs hurt. It's actual physical pain.
Yeah. So
I found myself in that state in the spring of 2013. I had to seek, professional psychological help, go on a lot of medications. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, climbing out of that hole, which took till I started feeling normal again, was probably about a year. It's a long time.
Yeah.
You start to get comfortable in that hole, though.
No.
Nope. That's because you don't know anything else.
There was
at the
no
moment.
comfort in that hole. All I knew that I needed to get out of this hole as soon as possible. And I knew it wasn't going to be I had some great people that were helping me through it. I knew it wasn't going to be quick. And dudes, let me tell you, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, what that felt like.
1,000-ton blanket, I'd imagine.
The only way to picture yourself on a summer day and then laying under this giant, wet, warm quilt. Like you're suffocating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want to talk to anybody. You don't want to be around any people. You can't do anything functional to get anything accomplished. Anyway, so without belaboring how bad that was, it took me about a year to get out. And I would sit just at my computer doing my job, mortgage job. And I would pick albums on YouTube to listen to. You know, my old favorites like Sabbath and whatever. Yes, Close to the Edge, all the great stuff. Rush, whatever. And one day, this was when I was already starting to feel pretty decent. I was about a year out of it, and this little recommended thing came up. It was a band called Blackberry Smoke, and I said,
Yeah.
I never heard of these guys. Let me listen to this record. So I clicked on it, you know, and I'm just doing emails and talking to brokers and stuff, and while this plays, I'm like, this is pretty good. You know, it's like Southern rock. It's like rock. It's like rock and roll that I haven't heard. But it came out in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, these guys are making this kind of music now.
Yeah.
This is not like 30 years old. You know what I mean? So next day I came back to the computer. I was like, I'm going to listen to that Blackberry Smoke record again. Clicked on it. Went through it the whole day. I was like, yeah, I'm really kind of digging this. Next day, play it again. Next day, play it again. I became obsessed with this band and this record. I was like, I cannot believe there's a band out there now, like climbing this ladder of success that's making this kind of music that I grew up on.
Yeah.
You know, it was a mix of like Little Feat and Skinner and, you know, just great rock and roll and unbelievably great songwriting. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it was really the songs that hooked me because they were so well written. And just every time I listened to a record, I'd be like, oh, this one's next. Can't wait to hear that one.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe the effect it had on me. And that record is what triggered ideas starting to come back to me and me wanting to actually
Back to your
record them.
roots.
Well, it actually makes perfect sense because
It brought back the desire to create is what that album did.
in this world that's all black and white, because everything is pretty much the same. You know, like you listen to a lot of popular music, it's all the same beats, same auto tune, whatever.
Exactly.
And then once in a while, something comes out that's so different and it breaks the mold. So look at somebody like Kanye West. I know he's crazy. I get it. I understand it. But what he's trying to do is he's trying to do different things. Sometimes shit veers off a little bit, but he's going to strike. And I was telling my son this. He's going to strike something that nobody's ever heard before because he's willing to experiment. He's big enough where he can experiment.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last song that did that for me was I Can Only Imagine by Mercy Me. It's the only song. That's the most recent song. And that song, when it hit on every chart. It hit on pop, it hit on Christian, it hit on country, it hit on every single chart. And that pain, that whole song was written out of his own pain. Did you take your deep depression and did you put it into whatever you were creating there?
Oh yeah, a lot of songs came. And the thing is, like, I wasn't feeling shitty when I wrote the songs, but I could definitely draw on past experiences. There's like almost 2 albums worth of shit back then that came from all that. So yeah, absolutely.
So that's turning your pain into power. That's, turning your suffering into success. And that's the whole point of it. And I think some of the best songs in history were written because of what was felt.
For sure. And other people can certainly relate to it when they hear it.
Well, it's authentic too. So you know when a song is authentic or a song is manufactured. Hit Me Baby One More Time by Britney Spears. There's no soul to it. Okay? There's no soul to it. But, you listen to Blackberry Smoke, and there's something in there that's drawing you. There's something in there that's connecting you, because that's what music does, right? Music connects you.
Yeah, with that album, the album was The Whippoorwill, by the way, in case anybody was interested. It was such good rootsy rock that I hadn't heard anything recent ever, like in that time frame. That was like the mid 2010s. I literally just was shocked that people were out there current day
now I'm gonna
making this kind of.
I'm going to have to listen to Blackberry Smoke on the way home.
Good stuff.
Great stuff, man.
I'm going to have to listen to it now.
So now
So now I'm writing songs again. Like, lo and behold, holy shit.
And you're writing songs, and you got to forgive me because I'm a Black Label Society guy, and
why wouldn't you be? Props to Zach Wilde, man.
You're hitting out exactly.
He's a Jersey guy, right?
Yeah, he is. I speak to Zach, myself, and like a couple other guys from Jersey that have known each other for speak every day, all day on a text thread. It just never stops. It's like
Sound familiar.
Yeah, it's like the thread you were talking about. We have one of those threads too.
Yeah, it's the type of thread that if it ever got out, you'd be destroyed personally.
Pretty much. I mean, we don't go to like Well, yeah, I guess
We do. Yeah, we do.
There's
Anyway,
no
so
boundaries.
yeah, mad props to him. The other day I asked him about his distortion pedal. His what's his company name?
The Wild Audio.
Yeah, Wild Audio.
Yeah.
I was
Dude,
asking him about,
you are a nerd.
Listen, man, I'm
Oh
a
my
metal.
God.
I'm a metal guy.
What kind of
Like, I'm
underwear
a-
does Zach Wild wear?
So yeah, I was like, hey man, like your pedal, does it, this and that? And he goes, yeah, this is what it does. He goes, you know what? Father Ken, because that's what he calls,
Yep.
everything's either father, yeah.
Saint.
I'm gonna send you and Father Dave all my pedals.
Wow.
So he did, and they came today.
He's
a
a s-
box with every one of his pedals, a whole set for me and a whole set for Dave. Who we'll get to Dave in a minute. Who that? He's the guitar player in my band. But Dave DiPietro was Zach's #1 worship guy
Yeah.
when he was before Ozzy, when he was in Xyrus.
Absolutely.
So he adores Dave. He loves me too. I mean, because we're all together in that thing together. But Dave was his #1 guy. So I'll send you and Father Dave everything. So I get this box, UPS box. I open it up. I was like, I just can't believe this dude. He is a very loyal friend, a very caring, generous guy. Can't say enough about him.
And he's at a level now where he could go one of two ways. It's either he sticks around the people who got him there, the people who started with him, or he forgets about his past. And you see that too much, unfortunately.
He's one solid dude.
He's rock solid, man. And the thing is, he was in the stratosphere with Ozzy, and when he started this Black Label thing, that has become that's his thing. That's his baby now. It's his trademark. It got real solid. There's millions of people around the world that love it and love him, and that's his thing. And he's doing it, man. It's living his best life. That's what I'm trying to say.
And he's not an old, how old is Zach Wild now?
Late
Yeah.
57, something like
I
that.
didn't even think he's that old.
He's solid. But
Yeah,
then
he ain't no spring chicken either.
and you do a good Zach Wild. It's a very good impression. He'd probably be very.
Thanks, Father Tom.
That's exactly it. Now go full circle. There's a little bit of a premonition here. One of the tracks on your album,
Yes.
Cruelest of Them All,
Yep.
is you collaborate, and it features Zach Wild.
Yeah. Yep.
How did that come to be?
Well, I was gonna release an album called what's it called? Conflicted.
Mm-hmm.
It originally was going to be 12 tracks. Ultimately, ended up splitting it into 2 EPs. Okay, so when I initially had those 12 tracks, I was like, I need to get. There's certain people that I need to get to play solos. First person, I was like, I got to get Zach to do it. I know he'll do it. I got to get Scotty Hill from Skid Row to do it. I know he'll do it because we were friends. All in the same circuit.
Another Jersey.
Yeah.
Skid Row.
Prettiest man I've ever seen in my life.
I know that-
Sebastian Bach.
Scotty's another awesome guy. And I said, I'm going to reach out to Charlie from Blackberry Smoke and see if he'll do a solo on my song Old Dog. And he did. So all those guys, I just asked them and they said yes.
Charlie Starr.
Well, that's because you spent your entire life in this, there's
This cauldron of pain.
yeah, and guess what? In foxholes, that's where you make brothers and sisters. In
Yeah.
foxholes, you don't make it. Nobody's going to be able to relate to Ozzy, but the musician who's worked his whole life to try to keep his head above water, that's where all of a sudden the bond will come. So, Kenny, where can our audience find you?
Sitting right here. Best way to just get links to everything else is just go to my website, kennydubman.com.
That's very easy.
Kenny, and then Dubman is my last name. If you go on there, you get links to YouTube, you get links to Instagram. It's a website. It's self-explanatory.
So there'll be a lower third right about here, saying kennydubman.com. Just pretend that it's here. Go like this. And there you go.
Just go to this website right here.
Right here. So we're coming to the end of this thing, Kenny, and
That was quick, man. I had a good time, guys.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure, man.
that's when the conversation's good. It just flows. It's kind of like when you're writing a song comes out just like that.
Yep.
You started in a path that is scary as hell to me. so counterintuitive to my personality, but I admire it. Like, I really do it. I admire that guts and the grit in order to carry it forward. And you were able to take something you loved and work towards and throw it away. Not throw it away, but put it aside so you have this other passion, this other direction. And then all of a sudden, you know, you're always where you're supposed to be. It pulls you back in.
Yeah, the old girlfriend came back, and I just I got suckered in.
You're like the Don Corleone.
They try to get out.
They pull me back
Pull me back in. That's it, and that's exactly what happened. Because I never, in a million years, when I had the charter fishing boat, ever thought that I'd be like, you know, making albums, and we got to do this, and we need a band, and we got
But
I thought I walked away from all that shit.
But you're older, you're wiser, and now you get to do it for the love of it.
Yeah.
For the love of it, you know.
Well, I'm still chasing the gold ring, though. Make no doubt. I got this new live band I'm putting together, and we're getting out there, and we're going to try to do it all over again. So
I can't wait to see what you're up to.
Yeah, cool.
But you went through these ups and downs. Okay, you've lived a life that most people dream of, right? And that's the truth. Living the rock star lifestyle, to being able to walk away from it, to coming back and actually finding the love again for it. And there's a lot of suffering along the way.
Oh, yeah.
So this path that you've walked, if you didn't learn from it, boy, is it a wasted opportunity. So what do you think it is that you've learned from this whole journey that you've been on, this ups and downs, this good times, bad times, victories and suffering?
That's an easy question to answer. Just do what you love to do.
That's an amazing thing, because how many people don't?
Do what you love to do. There's a line in a movie where somebody asked something like it was a movie called Rushmore. Somebody asked
with Bill Murray.
Yeah, I love that. My favorite movie. And Bill asks the main characters, I'm not going to be able to think of it. He goes, "What's the secret, Max?" And Max goes, "The secret?" And he goes, "Yeah, you seem to be a pretty, happy guy. What's the secret?" And Max goes, "I don't know. Just find something that you love to do and do it for the rest of your life." And I was like, that line has rung in my head ever since I saw that the first time.
I think it's the wisest words I've heard in a long time.
So, I mean, I still have to do what I got to do to pay my mortgage. You know what I mean? I can't quit my day gig. You know, one day maybe I will. Who knows if things, go the right way. But I'm realistic. You know, the kind of music I'm making isn't like, it's not pop, and it's not, whatever else is topping the charts. It's the kind of music that I like to play and sing and write.
But that's the type of music that hits.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's still an audience for it. I don't know how big it is, but I don't care, because it's what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do what I got to do to float the nut every month, and every other second I'm still chasing after this dream.
Success will follow.
It's so.
I hope so.
In
Yeah,
podcasting, there's 3 elements to a podcast. There's 3 reasons why anybody starts a podcast, and it's mission, message, and money. And if you put money first on that list,
Yeah, you can forget it.
you're going to be sorely disappointed. And I think the same thing is with music
Totally.
as well. But that mission and message, if you're doing things for that, now all of a sudden you're doing it for the love of the game. And I hope to see that mission and message drives you to where this is all you do. And I'd love to see what you could do when this is all you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can't wait to that. Just as an aside, I mentioned before, I have a bunch of guys now that I'm working with to put this thing out live, that are we all share that same vision. Like we're doing okay with everything that we do, but even now at our age, we share the vision that we want to take this thing all the way.
So
For whatever that means, we would all love to be on a tour bus, 5 years from now, just going from city to city.
well, if you need security, let me know.
All right, right on, man.
So here's the thing. And I'm telling you, it's like, I feel something, but anytime, and I'm dead serious with this, you're in here now. And when we say you're in here, I do mean that we are friends, we are family, and I'm invested in your career and your life. If there's ever anything that you need to promote, you give me a call and we'll put it out. And, maybe 5 people will show up.
Well, that sounds great. I really, really do appreciate that.
Yeah.
There will definitely be. I mean, once we get out and we're ready to play, which is a good few months down the road, it's going to be plastered all over. Every little soapbox that I can get up on and scream about it, you'll see me there.
Well, make sure you use us as a resource because I'm happy to help.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks you so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Kenny, I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you telling your story, and I cannot wait to see where you're going with this.
Right on.
All right, and now I got to listen to Black
Sabbath.
Black
Label Society.
No, the
Blackberry Smoke.
Blackberry Smoke. I'm going to listen to that on the way home. Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
And that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of a Musician with Kenny Dubman. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. You have to walk before you can run. The rock and roll lifestyle seems amazing, but very scary at times. One thing and only one thing can bring you back, but most importantly, do what you love to do. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow Tom at The Tom Flynn. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. And, of course, follow Suffering Podcast. We'll see you next time.